This is the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point where 21 million barrels of oil pass every single day, flowing through a waterway so narrow you could swim across it in under 2 hours. Now imagine that waterway closes, not for a day, not for a week, but for 3 full months. Let's see what happens in Europe, Asia, Middle East, and North America in the first 30 days. How Americans watch gas prices spike past $8 per gallon while halfway across the world.
The war with Iran is pushing gas prices higher across the country. Here in California, drivers are paying over $1 more per gallon than they were a month ago.
Gas stations in Japan and South Korea actually do run dry. By day 60, entire countries burn through their last reserves. And by day 75, India deploys the military as fuel riots break out in major cities. By day 90, the world's most powerful nations face an impossible decision: launch a military operation that could spark a regional war.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury.
Or stand by and watch the global economy collapse in real time. There's no third option. There's no more time. And the economic damage by that point is already catastrophic and irreversible. This is not speculation. This is what would probably happen month by month when Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. And the clock starts now. It begins on a Tuesday morning. Iranian speedboats swarm the shipping lanes, escorting mine layers that drop Soviet-era contact mines across the navigable channels. Within hours, anti-ship missiles destroy 2 oil tankers attempting to exit the strait. The wreckage blocks part of the shipping lane. Global markets don't wait for confirmation. By the time U.S. markets open, oil futures have spiked 40%. Brent crude jumps from $85 per barrel to $120 within hours. By the end of the first week, it hits $160. Stock markets crash. The S&P 500 drops 12% in a single session. Japan's Nikkei falls 15%. South Korea's Kospi drops 18%. In Tel Aviv, the Israeli cabinet convenes an emergency meeting. Israel imports nearly 100% of its oil, and most of it passes through Hormuz before reaching Israeli ports. Within hours, Israel activates its strategic petroleum reserves and opens direct communication channels with Washington. Prime Minister's office issues a statement supporting all necessary measures to reopen the strait. Israeli military intelligence begins sharing real-time data on Iranian positions with U.S. Central Command. This isn't just an economic crisis for Israel, it's a national security emergency involving their primary adversary. Governments worldwide scramble. The United States releases 30 million barrels from its strategic petroleum reserve. China follows with 20 million. Japan, India, and South Korea coordinate another 25 million barrels. It's the largest reserve release in history, 75 million barrels hitting the market within 2 weeks. Oil prices stabilize around $140 per barrel. Meanwhile, shipping companies stop sending tankers anywhere near the Persian Gulf. Lloyd's of London declares the Strait of Hormuz a war zone. Insurance premiums skyrocket to over $1 million per voyage. Within 3 weeks, maritime traffic through Hormuz drops to 0. Saudi Arabia increases flow through its east-west pipeline to the Red Sea, pushing 5.3 million barrels per day. The UAE activates its pipeline to Fujairah, adding another 1.5 million barrels daily. Combined, these alternative routes replace about 6.8 million barrels per day. But Hormuz was moving 21 million. The world is still short by 14 million barrels every single day. And here's where it gets complicated. Not everyone loses. Russia, which exports oil through routes that bypass Hormuz entirely, suddenly strikes gold. Every barrel sells at $140 instead of $85. Norway's North Sea oil fields operate at maximum capacity, feeding desperate European buyers. Canada ramps up Alberta's oil sands production, selling premium-priced crude to the United States. The United States faces a paradox. American oil producers in Texas, North Dakota, and New Mexico celebrate as prices soar. U.S. shale production generates massive returns at $140 per barrel, but American consumers suffer. Gas prices climb from $3.50 to $6.20 per gallon by month's end. The political pressure on Washington intensifies. For countries dependent on Middle Eastern oil, the crisis is immediate. Japan, importing 90% of its crude, faces energy costs not seen since the 1970s. South Korea sees prices double. India, importing 85% of its oil with 62% coming through Hormuz, faces immediate shortages. Gas prices in Europe hit 2.5 euros per liter, roughly $10.50 per gallon. Protests erupt in Spain, France, and Germany. By the second month, strategic reserves are draining fast. The US has released over 60 million barrels. China has tapped 35 million. Japan has burned through nearly half its national stockpile and announces fuel rationing for the first time since World War II. Gasoline stations operate only 3 days per week. Personal vehicles are restricted to 30 liters per month. The policy cuts consumption by 22% but crashes economic activity. Japan's economy contracts 4.1% in a single quarter. South Korea imposes a 4-day work week. Factories producing non-essential goods shut down. Electronics production drops 31%. GDP contracts by 6%. Israel, despite aggressive conservation measures, faces mounting pressure. The country's reserves, designed to last 90 days, are depleting faster than expected due to military readiness operations. Israeli defense forces maintain heightened alert status, consuming fuel at wartime rates. Energy Minister announces mandatory 20% reduction in civilian fuel consumption. Meanwhile, Israeli intelligence provides the Pentagon with detailed assessments of Iranian naval capabilities and potential weak points in their Hormuz defenses. India's crisis deepens. Strategic reserves hold only 40 days of consumption. By week 6, they're nearly depleted. The government caps gasoline prices, creating shortages. Fuel stations run dry. Black markets emerge. In rural areas, diesel shortages cripple agriculture. India restricts food exports. Global food prices climb another 12%. In the United States, gas prices hit $8.50 per gallon. The administration announces a federal subsidy capping prices at $6, costing $40 billion monthly. Airlines cancel over 15,000 flights. Smaller carriers file for bankruptcy. Countries with no reserves begin collapsing. Pakistan runs out of foreign currency. Fuel stations shut down. The rupee loses 40% of its value. Sri Lanka follows. Nationwide blackouts become permanent. East African nations importing refined petroleum through Hormuz see fuel prices triple. The UN warns of mass starvation. By month 3, the global economy is in full crisis. Oil prices stabilize at $175 per barrel, but only because demand has collapsed. Global consumption has dropped by 9 million barrels per day as industries shut down and consumers stop driving. Japan's reserves are nearly empty. Emergency imports from the US cost $190 per barrel. The yen weakens 14%. Inflation hits 8.7%. South Korea's export economy grinds to a halt. Samsung and Hyundai close factories. Unemployment climbs from 3.2% to 6.8%. India deploys military forces to protect fuel depots. Power outages are routine. Mumbai and Delhi have electricity only 16 hours daily. Protests spread across major cities. In the United States, the fuel subsidy is discontinued. Gas prices jump to $9.80 per gallon. Consumer spending collapses. Unemployment climbs to 8.3%. The economy enters recession, contracting 2.7%. But Texas, Oklahoma, and North Dakota thrive. The economic divide between energy-producing regions and the rest deepens. Bangladesh faces mass starvation. Textile factories employing 4.2 million shut down. Australia, importing 90% of refined petroleum, implements emergency rationing with only 28 days of reserves remaining. By week 12, diplomatic efforts fail. The UN Security Council is deadlocked. Russia and China veto military action. Iran demands sanctions removal, nuclear program recognition, and $500 billion in reparations. Talks collapse. The U.S. Navy assembles a carrier strike group in the Arabian Sea. Israel moves assets into position. Israeli Air Force coordinates strike packages with U.S. planners. F-35 squadrons stand ready at Nevatim and Ramon air bases. Israeli submarines, capable of launching cruise missiles, deployed to the Red Sea. The military option is no longer theoretical, it's operational. Mine-clearing operations could begin within 72 hours, but fully clearing the strait takes 6 to 8 weeks minimum. If Iran resists, 4 months. Casualties would number in the thousands. The campaign would cost $80 billion and require deploying over 40,000 troops. By day 90, the world faces the choice: launch a military operation or watch economies collapse, because it never actually reaches month 4. Either the US and Israel act, or governments fall and the crisis ends through devastation. This is why analysts say 3 months is the maximum, not because the world runs out of oil, but because political, economic, and social pressure becomes unbearable. Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, and within 90 days, the world faces a fundamental realignment. Some countries collapse. Others, those with oil outside Hormuz, emerge richer and more powerful. And the global order that emerges looks nothing like the one before. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. Until the next one, bye.